Are you stuck in the same old routine at work? Do you find yourself hitting a creative wall, unable to see beyond your current perspective? It's time to break free and unlock the power of fresh perspectives. David Gouthro back with another episode of Discover Fresh Perspectives. Today, we're going to discover some fresh perspectives from Tim Breightup. So welcome, Tim.
Yeah, thank you, David. Glad to join you today.
So, Tim, one of the things that I know is really important to you in terms of contributing to people's success is their attitude. But before we get into that, maybe you could just provide our listeners with a little bit of background about, what's the nature of your work and why is this particular topic so important to you? Why are you so passionate about it?
Well, I am passionate about it, David. And in terms of my work, I founded the company Spectrum Training, and we just celebrated 33 years in business. So it's been a pretty good ride. And, you know, as I've grown the business, just working with people, I just, discovered years ago that attitude plays such an essential role in our personal growth and professional growth. And every time I do any kind of session or whatever, attitude is always a component of that, for sure.
So how did you discover that, or how did you come to that conclusion, Tim, that attitude was such an important factor?
Well, my mother kind of played a bit of a role where anytime there's adversity or some situation, her expression is, well, what are you going to do? And when you think of that, the answer is, well, not a whole lot, but yet you can do something. And that is, as I define attitude is all about choice. And she taught me that what kind of choices are you going to make around this adversity or even your success in terms of embracing that personally or professionally. So since then, I've really been mindful of that. And I've exercised it myself in my personal growth, as well. And it's a great ally to have. It's a great tool.
So it goes back. I mean, first of all, it's hard to believe that you've been doing anything for 33 years. For those of you that can't see Tim, which you can't, he doesn't look like he's old enough to have done anything for 33 years.
Oh, you're so kind.
But it's nice that you attribute this to your mother, because sometimes we forget those little lessons that come from our parents that somehow weave their way into our lives. So maybe just start when you use the term attitude. How do you define attitude? When you say that, what do you mean by attitude?
Yeah, that's a good question because that's always open for broad interpretation. It's such a well overused word. And a lot of times it has negative connotations. Well, your attitude, you have to improve and da da da. And your manager says, well, boy, David, your attitude, we need to work on that. But yet, although that prevails in a lot of conversations, a lot of times it's on the positive side as well. And that's what we have to recognize within is that we exude a positive side of that concept of whole attitude. So to answer your question in terms of defining it, I have a very, very simple definition of it, and it's one word, and that is choice.
Hmm.
Attitude, you always have a choice. We always say, well, it's a partly cloudy day. Well, the choice is, well, maybe it's partly sunny. And glass half full or is it half empty? Well, I think we'll just be glad you have a glass. So it's all about the choices you make in terms of the experiences, adversities, whatever that you experience in life.
So I would imagine that, people don't wear on their forehead a sign that says, I have a good attitude, a bad attitude, that we can determine or judge what that person's attitude is based on the choices that they make. Is that fair?
Yeah. Yeah. You're not going to wear a signage, but yet your nonverbal speaks very loudly. And that can communicate attitude. Huge.
Okay. So let's dive into that for a moment if we can. So what's some examples of body language? And I know there's so many different books and studies on this and things like that. But what are some signs that I would notice in you that I would, come to the conclusion that, hey, that Tim's got a good attitude? What would I see without even hearing the words?
Well, that's a good point. One of the things that come to my mind is this eye contact with people. We're so distracted, and there's a plethora of distractions, but yet, you go to these networking conferences, and I shake your hand. Hey, David, nice to see you. As I'm looking around the room,
Don't you
but
dare.
yeah, yeah, and I'm thinking, well, hang on a minute. You're not really connected, you're not engaged, and just being engaged with people and asking them questions about their world. People love to be self-absorbed and interrupt you with their story, but if you're sincere enough and really showing an interest in that person and making them feel that you're in the conversation, I think that's a big part of attitude because you're choosing to be engaged.
So, and this may be getting a little bit too intellectual. That's where my head is going at the moment. So, you know, I would think that I would judge or describe you as having a good attitude or a bad attitude based on my expectations of how I would respond in a particular situation. So if I would do things a certain way, I think I have a good attitude. Well, you must have a good attitude. But if those expectations aren't met, I might say, oh, bad attitude. You may do nothing other than asking me a question. And let's say I'm an expert. Some experts don't like to be questioned or challenged because their ego's hooked into it. So the fact that you're asking me questions, I might say, oh, he's got a bad attitude. Whereas if I was the kind of person that really valued having a good person to person connection and you were asking me a lot of questions, I might think, oh, that guy's got quite a good attitude, right? Because he's asking me questions. Is that fair, or am I just heading off down a path that's going to
No,
nowhere?
no, that's fair, and you say it's based on your perceptions of how you decide if Tim or Dave or whomever has a good attitude, and I don't think you'll ever satisfy everybody else's
Mhm.
expectations or perceptions, but all you can do is embrace the best you can on your behalf. And if you don't connect with everybody, which we don't, uh, so be it. So be it. But at least make an attempt to have your body language and your signs or hands folded and eye contact and show a little modicum of interest in the other person. I think that goes a long way.
So I would imagine that when people engage your services, they're not engaging you to help their people have a better attitude. They're engaging you to bring about some kind of change in the organization, better sales, whatever. So, how does attitude fit into what kind of an outcome your clients are looking for when they engage you?
Well, I think there's a number of ways, and one of the things is that I share with the people is attitude drives skills,
Hmm.
and without the foundation of attitude, your skill set is kind of just out there, and it's little advantage. You can have all the skills you want, but if it's not driven and supported by a healthy attitude and a choice to want to engage in your job or your responsibilities, then the skills are, they wane. They don't really come to the surface. Yeah.
So, without meaning to put you on a spot, but I will. So,
Yeah.
can you think of an example of a particular skill that someone's supposed to be using where attitude has a magnifying effect if it's done well?
Well, great question. I'm happy to answer that. And my background and my profession company is really based on sales efficiencies and sales. And oh my God, David, in 33 years, I've had my share of rejection.
I find that hard to believe, but I'll assume that you're telling the
I
truth.
know,
Carry on,
I
Tim.
know. I mean, we as humans struggle horribly with rejection at the best of times, but why somebody go in sales and just elevate the rejection is a head scratcher. But I did it. I enjoyed it. So my attitude had to kind of help me through that and not take it personally. And I made a choice where, hey, it's a business decision, it's an objective decision, and I have to move on. And even with the rejection, it's attitude that kind of gets you through that and making the choice that move along and my attitude with rejection is one word once again is next, and you move on to the next potential opportunity.
So this harkens me back to a story I heard from Larry Wilson. I used to work for Wilson Learning uh,
Oh,
several
hey,
careers ago.
wow.
And I
Okay.
remember, when he was first selling life insurance and he was dealing with what you talked about, and because I think this relates to both choice and skill. He found it, and let's say I'll just make up the numbers, but the principles be the same, that he would sell, out of every 10 people he spoke to, he'd sell one contract worth $10,000. But then there were 9 that got nothing. And he said the way that he looked at it, and this is a choice that he made, is that each person he talked to, regardless of the outcome, he said, "Thank you very much for the $1,000. Thank you very much for the $1,000." Even when he got the $10,000, thank you very much for the $10,000, because it was the consistent effort that was going to pay off for him in selling. Like I don't know, is that a skill or a choice or a combination of both, or perspective?
It's probably a combination of both, but I would definitely lead on that's an attitude side of the equation where you made a choice. I love the analogy of $1,000. In sales, you get the rejection, and to kind of echo a bit of that story is I always say that you go home at the end of the day and your spouse asks you, "Honey, how was your day?" Well, your answer could be, "Well, I had a great day because I got 5 rejections.
Mm. Yeah.
I had 5 turndowns, and that's bringing me closer to number 10." And, I did that a fair amount is that, well, this rejection is, thank you for that, and I know I'm in the because you live in the valley of no's in sales, and whatever profession or your listeners are in, who's listening to this, whatever form of rejection you have, just it's a step forward, and again, it's choice versus beating yourself up.
So I don't hold the belief that we are different people at home than we are at work or in our private life versus our public or business life. So how does attitude play out when you're talking about other events? I know you're married and your wife has saved your bacon a couple of times when it comes to technology. But relationships where there's often tension and there's not a dollar payout at the end, how do you apply attitude in personal relationships, Tim?
Well, it may not be a monetary payout in terms of, with your relationship or marriage, but it's certainly an emotional payout. And I always say that in a marriage, love is not a noun, it's a verb.
Hmm.
And, unless you show that in so many ways of love, that's making a choice and the actions you take. I have an expression that supports that, David, and it's this, is where, your words tell me what's on your mind, your actions show me what's in your heart.
So
And
say that again, Tim, just to let that sink in.
yeah, yeah, your words tell me what's on your mind, your actions show me what's in your heart.
Interesting.
And I think that's a definite choice. So what are you doing to actually demonstrate the love you have for your spouse or the love you have for your craft, your
Hmm.
passion, right? What are you doing about that? Words say a lot of things, but a lot of times they're shallow, they're empty, and I think the action is where you need to be, and that's an emotional payback. Not so much a monetary payback as you might have in the business sector. And you're right. The expression you've heard is, how we do one thing is kind of how we do all our things.
Hmm.
So whether you're at home or work, you are who you are, which I agree with. And so either way, it's a discipline. It has to be intentional along the way. So
So let's say you have become aware that you have a bad attitude. Either you feel it yourself and you recognize it, you have a little bit of mindfulness, or someone else says you've got a bad attitude, probably with the finger pointing like I'm doing right now. How is there a process, or how does one consciously shift from having a bad attitude to a good attitude? Because I suspect it just isn't a switch that gets flipped. Can you actually do that?
I doubt it, but again, it comes back to choice. I think the very fact you've acknowledged that maybe, if one person tells you bad attitude, okay, two people tell you, okay, but three people, well, maybe there's an issue. And once you get to the point where you acknowledge that's your first choice. It's like any addiction, right? You really have to choose to be the solution and not more of the problem. And then outside of that, there's resources, there's mentors, there's professional people that you can talk to. There's, you know, take a look at ways to build more of a positive attitude. It's certainly doable. Well, maybe with some people, not so much, but
Function of skill or desire could be both.
yeah, yeah, and those people will always exist. But if you're taking responsibility for that, I think with a good healthy choice to want to make a change, make an adjustment, I think that's doable.
I'm just thinking about how I would respond if someone said that I had a bad attitude. And I think for many people, and I was just on a webinar earlier this morning about how what we think negatively has much more impact on us than positively. Like just our brain orients around that because we've got that old limbic system that says, oh, there's danger here. So when someone tells me I have a bad attitude, the choices you often hear are fight, flight, uh, uh, fawn is another one, and flock, I've heard. So I would think that in order for me to hear someone say, I've got a bad attitude, I have to first realize that's an opinion they hold. That's not a statement of fact, right? And because I can argue with, I don't have a bad attitude, you have a bad attitude, get into that. But I think to be able to go into a curiosity and say, so what have I said or done that leads you to that conclusion that I have a bad attitude? Because I can't change bad attitude. I can change the choices that I make. And the only way I know what choices that I can make are if someone helps me understand what it is that's leading them to the conclusion that I have a bad attitude. Does that make sense?
Yes, yes, it does. It does. And what's the magic answer to make the switch? There's a plethora of different things, but I think it starts right up in here in your mind and you making the choice set and acknowledging that there may be need for a bit of change, not major change, but tweaking, if you will, minor adjustments. And I think it's necessary to identify what is consistent feedback that you're getting in terms of identifying this bad attitude. If you're hearing a few consistent things, then that's a pretty good start to work on. And then search out the resources to help you out with that, be it a mentor or even self-mentoring.
So let's say you're in a position to mentor me or coach me, or to think of the people that are listening to coach them. What are some suggestions or recommendations or tips or processes that you would suggest they might embrace in order to develop the kind of attitudes that you've been talking about that lead to better results?
Yeah, that's good question. I do offer a couple things when I deal with people and talk to things, and I'm happy to share those with you. In terms of a
Now,
list of
Tim, just to be clear, you're volunteering this. You're not expecting people to give you money on this podcast, are you?
Well, yes, I was just gonna clarify who I send the invoice to. I'm not sure on that one.
Perfect. Sorry, for that distraction. I
No,
distract myself.
no
So, what are
worries.
some?
It's fun. So there's a number of added tools of top achievers,
Sorry,
and
say that again, just to make sure people heard it. I think I like that word.
yeah, the word I use is added tools.
Add a tool. Love it.
Added tool because it should be a constant ally, a tool in your toolbox to help you out. So, sort of answering your question,
Yeah,
I
bring them on.
offer a couple tools, added tools that can work for you. Uh, the first one I refer to is just a simple word of action. Top achievers take action. They don't think about it for too long. They don't ponder it. They don't wonder about it. They don't hope for it. They actually step up and take action. And so they seek out the resources that are going to be proved to be helpful to them. Uh, you take a look at our forefathers of success. I take them, the Bill Gates, the Steve Jobs, all these people. The list goes on, and even a Musk. I mean, these guys just I have the expression, the Nike expression. I don't like to just do it.
Right.
I like to just did it.
Oh,
And, and that's the expression I use and guides me is just did it. So it comes back to attitude number one is just stop thinking about it and get on with it. Because you just don't have a lot of time. And I love the Chinese proverb, David, where it says, man who waits for roast duck to fly in mouth, wait a very long time. So if you're going to wait around and well, someday, it's not going to work. You got to step up and take action. And
okay.
these are the people who are truly successful. Yeah. The second one, now this is going to be interesting, is esteem. Attitude number two is esteem. And there's, of course, self esteem and coupled with career esteem. So, how do you feel about yourself? How do you feel about your esteem and your craft and your passion? Well, one of the things here is we always hear about, well, you've got to build your weaknesses. You have a meeting with your boss and, oh, David, you got the weakness here. You're doing okay over here, but your weaknesses, we got to keep working on that. And I say to heck with it. Uh, the, re- the reason you have a weakness is that you weren't born with those DNA. So it's always going to be weakness. And if you spend too much time on it, you're going to have strong weaknesses. So here's what you do to really achieve and grow. What you want to do is build the weaknesses within your strengths. And I'll repeat that.
But do you notice the quizzical, the raising of the eyebrows here, Tim?
Yeah.
So build the weaknesses within your strengths.
Yes.
So what's that mean? How do you do that?
That means let's take a PGA golfer,
Okay.
the best golfer in the world, right? And what they do is they have coaches. They work hard on their chipping, on their putting, and they're the best in the world. So they work on the weakness within being the best in the world. My example is I was with the Canadian Ski Patrol 15 years, and you had to pass every couple of years, you had to pass ski tests. And there's three categories. One category, I was weak. Though I love skiing, I was good at it. I actually paid to build the weakness within that strength. So I paid for ski lessons. And I actually had a ski instructor help me out build that weakness within the strength. And that's what I'm suggesting is everybody on this planet has strengths. And whether it's musical or athleticism, athletes are always training, always looking at coaches. And I think if you can continue to build, I know that if you can continue to build some of the strengths you have by addressing the weakness within that strength, that serves you well for personal and professional growth. And it comes back to your questions. Well, how do we address a bad attitude? Well, that's one of the ways to. That's something to think about.
So we've got two attitools. People like threes. Do you have a third one for us?
Yeah, well, just having another one would be just the work-life balance,
Hmm.
making a choice in terms of where you spend your time. We've got such a minimal amount of time. It's a non-renewable resource. It's just, and I've got the expression here, David, someday you're going to run out of some days. And so what are you doing with the time that you have on this great planet? What are you doing with it? So the work-life balance is always a struggle and always under great debate. But again, it's a choice. It's a choice as to how am I going to allocate my waking hours in terms of my work and my my life. And most people on their deathbed say, I wish I'd spent more time with family. I wish I'd gone on a couple more trips. Well, then that's what you need to do. Yeah, because the corporate world won't miss you. Your family will.
So, so let me see if I've got these three tools. So the first one is take action. It's not about without thought, but enough thought to get going. So like ready, fire, aim. Start doing something and modifying as you go instead of trying to get that 100% right. At which time you've got 100% right, it's no longer relevant. So get going on it and look at what you've done and seek the resources that you need to do it. Don't use the lack of them as excuses for inaction. Is that one of them?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. Yes.
Second one, you talked about esteem and building your weaknesses within strengths, and by that I interpreted that there's kind of a realm or a platform for our strengths. So let's say I'm a really good speaker, but there's some things I need to do better from a marketing perspective. If I were to focus on the fact that I'm not great at golf, that wouldn't make a whole lot of sense. That's not one of the realm of my strengths. So what's a basket of general strengths that I have? And within that basket, look at some ways to tweak it and continuously improve it, just like you have to continually test with your when ski patrol and things like that. And the third one was about work life balance. So the, not regretting what you didn't do because you hadn't been paying attention to it. So, that's another choice to make today. What's it going to be? But in the context of my whole life. So those are three, I think, really practical things that people can do if they choose to do so. Any last gems before we close off today, Tim?
Well, just on the strengths, I just want to share, and this might shock a few people, the statement, but I believe we're only born with a handful of strengths. It's not like we have a basket of strengths. I look at myself. Yeah, I wrote a book, but my wife could help co-author a book of my weaknesses. I mean, yeah, she's offered to do that, but anyway, I haven't taken action on that one yet. But if you look at your own personal life, David, on one hand, you can probably count the strengths, something that David's really good at. And what you're really good at is it's something that you continually go back to, and it's innate. You were just born with that. And people are born with three or four strengths, and that's where you focus. So whatever that strength is, and I don't think there's a whole lot, but build the weakness within that strength and really flourish. And that's, the better you become at something, the more joy you bring into your life and the more self-esteem you bring in to your being. So,
So, so
yeah.
interesting. When I think about strengths, the way that you've described it, it's it's so important to me that I would suffer if I wasn't able to do it. There's so many things that maybe I do reasonably well, but I wouldn't suffer if I didn't do them. So it's finding those things that are so important to me that are strengths that if I couldn't do it, I'd feel regret or hurt or pain or something. So I
And,
think it's an interesting filter.
and that's a great way to look at it, David. The other thing my father used to say is that when you have a strength, when you have a craft, a passion, you would do it for free. You would do it for free. And I know speakers, we have a little bit of that where, we do some pro bono things where, we're not going to get a lot of leads out of it. We do it because of the love of our craft and such. And when I ski patrolled 15 years, that was all volunteer. There's no paying that, but I just absolutely loved it. And if I had lost that, I would have missed it terribly. So just take a look at your inventory of the three or four strengths you have and people have, and that's your focus. Focus.
Well, I think about this podcast. I've been having more fun than I've ever had in my professional career, just doing this, just having conversations. So it's a good example. Tim, thank you so much for being with us here today. This has been great. We have some practical takeaways for people, which is always great.
Great. Well, glad to be of help, David, and thanks for having me.
My pleasure. And so, David Gouthro, Discover Fresh Perspectives, signing off for today. Can't wait to have you join us again for another Fresh Perspective. Subscribe now, because on Fresh Perspectives, every episode is an opportunity to explore new horizons and redefine what's achievable.